Hey guys, Faskman here. I'm checking in today with a video on the new hero Scarlet Witch. As you know, she was released yesterday as the latest addition to our squads. Let me know what you guys think of her so far. I think she is absolutely amazing. To be fair, all of those skills are just looking superb. That ultimate is just ridiculously good looking and useful as well. So she seems to be very much overpowered at this point. If you want to check out, we have done a speed run with her all the way to Hela yesterday, so we managed to hit the last boss on the first day playing manually. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing a cut-off edit of those videos soon onto the channel if you want to have a look of the whole run. It took about, I don't know, 5 to 7 hours, not quite sure, because obviously all the breaks and openings and all that I've done in the meantime, but at least you guys know that it's doable. So in this video we're gonna be doing a deep dive. We're gonna be having a look at her costumes, we're gonna be having a look at the skill options and specializations as well. Also gonna show you what did I go for in my Omega cards, but obviously those are definitely not the final recommendations, because right now everyone is just testing, so we're gonna need at least a good few weeks before we can actually draw any conclusions. So we're gonna be starting with having a look on costume sets. Unfortunately, that's the reason I was saying that Netmarble screwed over free-to-play players once again. But gonna go into detail on that in just a sec, so let's get into it. Okay, to make a reasonable decision on our costume sets, we first have to look on the total damage output of all of our skills. So as you know, I do love my spreadsheets, so I did put together a DPS ranking chart for all of Scarlet Witch's skills, which you can see on the screen already. So, having a look, our first one is the Witch's Darkness, Witch's Sphere Mastery, which is out damaging Hex Project and Hex Lightning by only 0.3%. And the third one is also a Witchcraft skill, which is Witch's Tongue Teleportation Wave. However, don't let this fool you, because overall, Hex Energy still out damages Witchcraft by a lot if we count in all three of the top skills from the class, because the third Witchcraft skill is unfortunately very low on the ranking, being the Shape of Terror on the 14th spot. So out of the top 10 skills, we have 7 from the Hex Energy class, 1 from Chaos and 2 from Witchcraft. So, Psychokinesis looks like the best overall skill looking at all the masteries, because it has 3 of all these 7 skills from the Hex Energy mastery. So that is definitely a very good overall skill, since you have much more options to choose them in different ways. But the problem with Witch's Sphere is that it does not really have too much functionality. So as you can see here, I put together another sheet with all the other information, the DOT, guard damage, the control, saying like if it has any kind of status effect, or does it knockback, knockdown, stuff like this. Does it have any self buff, and if you are going untargetable by using the skill or not. So Witch's Darkness only has the Witch's Sphere in a very good position, but has the lowest guard damage, doesn't have any control, doesn't have any buff, and you are not untargetable either. And the other 3 masteries from this skill are not really that good ranking wise. So yeah, that is it. About Hex Projector and Hex Lightning, that is superb because it has a very low cooldown and decent damage regardless, so it's probably going to be a very good skill for dimensional duels, for example, because obviously over there you can just spam it and control and silence your opponent with the Witchcraft and Chaos magic skills. So Going to the number 1, which is Witch's Tongue Teleportation Wave, it also has a very good ranking for this one mastery. The rest of them are actually unranked at the moment, so it might actually like overall be a very good choice, but right now we cannot really say, because for example Reality Fall does not have a damage counter on its skill description despite actually doing damage. I've been using that skill all around, all the way throughout going through the storyline, and it definitely does damage, and quite a decent one as well, and also does a quite good self buff as well, which also spreads to your allies in Omega Wars and Alliance Omega Wars. So we have to see if they're gonna correct this, and in that case we can put it on the DPS ranking properly, because the skill definitely does damage, but it doesn't have a damage counter, so I don't know why is this. And the same goes for Reality Wrap as well. It does not have any damage at the moment. Then, as I've said before, Psychokinesis seems to be very good because 3 of its masteries are actually in the top 10, and it is also a quite good useful skill because have very good guard damage. All of them has a control in the form of knockdown, if I'm correct, and doesn't have buff or untargetable options, unfortunately, but still it is a very good overall skill because you can choose it for boss fight, you can choose it for PvP and all that. Apart from that, we have 1 Chaos Magic skill in the top 10, so unfortunately this category, this class definitely does not seem to be the best DPS wise. However, it is definitely the best control wise, because all of the Chaos skills have very good control. All of them have control, DOT, and some of them even have self buff as well, so they are definitely good. However, overall DPS wise it's not good, so you don't really want to go ahead and invest in these costume wise, because their utility is still there even without the buff, because the costumes only will increase their skills damage. They're not gonna make a difference in your DOT, they're not gonna make a difference in your guard damage, on the controls or anything. So in the end, there is not much point to go for these costume wise. Okay, so now we went through the top 10. Let me explain what's the problem with these, why I've said Netmarble has screwed over free-to-play players slightly here. And we're gonna be able to see it on this screen, which has the costume sets that buff these skills. So Witch's Darkness does have a non-regional set boost in it, but as I've said, it's not really a good overall skill. So apart from the Witch's Sphere, the rest of the Witch's Darkness masteries are out of the top 10, and they don't really have too much utility anyway. So do you really want to go for these? Because obviously you are sacrificing versatility of your hero with this, because obviously if you're gonna go ahead and choose Young Avengers, then you're just gonna have to use Witch's Sphere, because that's the only useful mastery out of this skill. Then the actual reason of the mess up is that the 2 better Hex Energy skills do not have a non-regional set. So Hex Projection is missing non-regional sets, and also Psychokinesis is missing a non-regional set. So your only option from Hex Energy is the Hex Release, which has not 1 but 2 non-regional sets for some reason, which is actually like very weird, because instead of doubling up on 1 skill, they should have released this set for another Hex Energy skill. I don't really see like how does this make sense, like missing 2 other skills out of this class in favor of doubling up on the costumes for 1 of the class. Anyways, that's my real problem about this, because as I've said, Psychokinesis is quite a good overall skill as well, and so is Hex's Projection. So I would definitely suggest, for example, to go for the non-regional set that boosts Hex Projection. Moving on to Witch's Tongue, yet again a problem with this one is that the non-regional set is the Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness non-regional. The real problem is with this set is that the other skill it boosts is the language of demise, which, as you can see, barely made it to the top 20 with one of its skills. So there is literally no point of going with the Multiverse of Madness skill, because both critical damage and defense spears, which are on the other sets, are definitely much more useful than a set that boosts a skill that its damage does not really need to be boosted, because you're not getting anything extra out of it, because the reason you are using Language of Demise is more for its control and utility abilities rather than for its damage. So basically, out of the top 5 skills DPS wise, the only option you have is to go with the Witch's Darkness with the Young Avengers set. But yeah, utility wise, not the best. So at this point, it looks like that your best option might be the Disassembled or the Call of the Mountain set for Hex release, because two of these skills are in top 10. So probably overall you are going to be able to get more out of it than if you were going with the Young Avengers set. So this is the reason why I'm saying that free-to-play players are quite screwed over here, because you're pretty much forced to go with the regional sets, which is probably the best option, being Xandert or Hydra, in my opinion, overall for DPS, because as I've said, the utilities and the controls are not being boosted by the set bonuses. So you don't really have much option here. Yeah, so to summarize, in my opinion, your options are, non-regional wise, is either to go for the Young Avengers and boost Witch's Darkness for Witch's Sphere and forget about utility and all that and work around that skill, or to go ahead and go Disassembled or Call of the Mountain, depending on obviously which stat you need, critical damage or defense spears. Obviously, if you are able to max out defense spears via cards and cores, then you definitely want to go Disassembled. And if it's the other way around, then go ahead and use the other one. Apart from that, I definitely wouldn't recommend to go for the Multiverse of Madness set, because as I've said, it boosts one good skill, but sacrificing a stat like critical damage or defense spears, it boosts another not so good DPS skill. And if we need to choose regional sets as well, I would definitely suggest to go with Xandert or Hydra, yet again based on the same exact thing, if you need critical damage or if you need defense spears more, because Hex Energy overall is the best DPS and DPS damage dealer class in the game for Scarlet Witch. So obviously you would want to go for these instead, and then go ahead and choose a Witchcraft and 2 Chaos skills to support, because probably that's going to be your best setup. You definitely want to have both of the Chaos skills purely for their utility, and the Witch Chart skill, because it has a very, very good lock-in specialization, especially if we are thinking about Omega Wars and Alliance Omega Wars. In Dimensional 12, that specialization is not as useful, so over there we just need to test what's gonna happen. Also, as a disclaimer here, I just want to say that this ranking might actually change as well, because as I mentioned, 2 Mysteries from the Witch's Tongue skill do not have a damage counter on them or a damage percentage on them at the moment. One of them, which we definitely know does do damage. So obviously, like when they correct that the description mistake or take off the damage, I don't know which one's gonna happen obviously, it might actually affect this DPS ranking. And another note on this sheet is that things are still work in progress. So as you can see, these things are all need to be tested out for all of these skills. Obviously, like one of the main things that we learned is gonna stick with the game, knowing that quite a few heroes still have some of these skills that you can dodge cancel for instant damage. So we have to see which of Scarlet Witch's skills this can be done. Then we're gonna have to check out casting times for all skills based on the fact if they can be dodge cancelled or not, and that will give us a different DPS ranking probably, and also gonna have to have a look on what the 6-star regionals gonna take the skills damage to. Obviously for that we have to achieve 6-star on all the 3 class skill boosting regionals, which is gonna take a while. So yeah, I think I'm gonna end it on this note, and we're gonna pop into checking out these skills one by one for the different setups. So let's go, guys. As you can see, I managed to grab number 1 or top 1 Scarlet Witch on our server, very close with Afterlife, so shout out to him because he already pushed his character to 118 since yesterday. I think he just ran out of training ground time or whatever, and that's why he stopped there. But it is a very close call so far. So he's 1.6.3, was that 1.630, and I am sitting at 1.673. So we are very close, and this is only because I pulled up all my specializations as well. So anyways, don't want to bore you with this. Let's go ahead and check out my skill setups. Let's see. Right now, as I've said, I'm running Standard because Hex Energy is the absolute best DPS skill set. So the idea is to use Hex to do all the damage and use Witchcraft or Chaos to support it with all those status effects, controls, and everything that they have. So I basically stripped off my Black Widow, and this is the reason Scarlet Witch is so high, because I'm using the main badge sets that I had on my main hero. Obviously the companions have a lot as well, and half of my Omega cards are from Black Widow as well. So let's go into it. So this is basically my trash kill setup. This is what I used to go through the speedrun yesterday. Pretty much used it all the way on bosses and trash mobs up until Dark Domain, where I have started using a post skill setup as well, because obviously over there the bosses start to hit hard, and despite being like so high in power, I started feeling their hits. So this is the post setup. Obviously, we're gonna jump into the skill setups in just a second detail. I just want to show you the the overall setups as they are now, and this is what I put together for PvP. This is obviously, as I was saying, with all these things, it's a work in progress, because I haven't actually updated the skill setup for the addition of my specializations. So let's go ahead and have a look. So for trash kills, for training grounds and all that, I would suggest using these skills. These are like the lowest cooldown and highest area of effect skills. So for example, Hex Energy, Hex Projection, Hex Bolt, which is a super low cooldown linear skill for 360% damage, which I like because of the short cooldown. Then in another slot, in the slot number 2, we have the skill that was borrowed from Captain Marvel clearly, the Barrage, which is a chaos skill. The DOT helps only later on. Obviously around Dark Domain they started staying alive and not dying from a single skill, so the DOT helps a lot. Obviously there's gonna be a good help in the training grounds as well. So I suggest using this one for sure as well. And then there we go, we have a massive damage dealing skill, nearly 1000% damage with an 18% cooldown, which is just absolutely superb. This one was clearing mobs all the way until the end of Dark Domain with a single hit. Obviously no wonder with those percentages. Then we have another Hex Energy skill. Obviously I'm using Sundered, so for me it just makes absolute sense to push them in, but they are very good anyway, so I don't think anyone should skip these skills anyway. So this is 15.6 seconds cooldown for 780% damage, which is also super good. And then this is a weird one here, because it doesn't actually tell you that you are doing damage with it. I'm not quite sure why is it not mentioned, or like what is it based on. I really don't understand this skill. So in the DPS chart as well, I put this in with the question mark, because I just don't really know like what's going on here. So I would suggest this being your trash kill setup. This is great too if you want to play through manually throughout the game, and obviously this is a great setup for training grounds. I just noticed I messed up the companion setup here, so this is what I'm using for what I was actually using for the trash guild part of the game. I like to use Spider-Man because he overall is a very good hero. He is doing like, what's that, constant damage for 9 seconds for 45% of your attack, which is super good. And apart from that, you just want to go all in on the damage dealing, it was that the attack boost companions. And obviously Omega cards, just use whatever gives you the most attack, because at that point it doesn't really matter. I really hate the villain damage cards. I don't really see a point of them. Some people say they are quite good, but I don't really see the point of wasting resources of upping them, because a level 3 or level 4 villain damage card is not going to give you as much stuff as a level 5, level 6 attack card, for example. So yeah, boss wise, these are the single damage skills I went with. These are obviously just the highest single damage skills, so where you need to, probably only from around Sakar, Midgardia, depending on your power, you just hit with as many skills as possible and just fly around until they come off cooldown and rinse and repeat. So for this, also a Hex Energy skill, 1090% damage for 15 seconds cooldown. Another one with 1000% damage with 23 seconds cooldown, another 1000% with 19 seconds cooldown. So these skills are absolutely superb and they are melting the bosses all the way. And lastly, we have the last Hex Energy skill, which is also 780% with a 15 seconds cooldown. So these skills are just absolutely superb. Everything is super high percent. So Scarlet Witch might actually have viability in a supervillain fight as well, but obviously we're just gonna have to see that in the future, because right now it's just like the resources are simply not enough to make her both supervillain and PvP ready. So in my opinion, her absolute place is gonna be in PvP, as Netmobile actually advertised her to be as well. So my current the PvP setup is this one. I'm still using Daredevil because I just simply refuse to use Hulk. So let's see these skills. So basically I went with all Hex Energy obviously as well, because I'm using Sundered, so we needed the boost out of them. So using the barrier Hex Energy one, not the single damage, not the other one with the same damage, solely because this gives you a 40% barrier. So that is definitely quite good, because there are a lot of people who are still using Ultram, for example, and no wonder, since it is a massive boost to your HP and survivability. So I suggest this one being one of your skills, and it is also hitting extremely hard. So very similar to the boss setup as well, by the way. So a second skill I chose Chaos as well. It is just superb that we have the OT, and we also have quite good control effects as well. It increases the target's stamina consumption by 30% if they use a skill, while the instability lasts, and also it consumes dodge code, an additional 30% dodge code when they are using a dodge skill. So basically, they can, if the dodge is full, they're not gonna be able to use dodge 3 times, only 2 times, which is just absolutely superb. And finally, something to counter those pesky Spider-Man say. So we also have another Hex Energy skill. Here I chose the Barrage one, the 19.5% cooldown versus the 18% cooldown. That 1% doesn't really make a difference anyway in my opinion, so I don't really understand why they did two so very similar skills right next to each other, because you only have 100% difference in damage and 1 second cooldown. So I'm not quite sure like what's happening here, but obviously the one with the highest guard break versus the medium one will make more sense for that extra 1.5 seconds, especially since her guard break is quite high for a ranged hero. So yeah, that's absolutely superb. I did the silence skill. I've actually, on the stream yesterday when I got to the dimensional duel quest, I've actually jumped in and ran against a level 120 Captain Marvel, I think it was Deadpool, and managed to silence him despite not having fuck all status effect accuracy or anything. So I'm not quite sure if these are actually like guaranteed hits or not, but definitely gonna be super fun to use these in Omega Wars. And on top of that, you have an attack decrease, you have an additional damage done to the targets if they use an attack skill, and they are also unable to dodge for 3.5 seconds after they use a dodge skill, and they also deal damage when they also receive damage when they use a dodge skill. So this is just absolutely superb. They basically either just run around or take extra damage. So this skill seems to be very good. This whole set seems to be very good as well, but I chose the Gift of Silence because obviously it does silence. The rest of them only do constraints, and this one does silence as well. So depending on what do you use it for. So I think the Gift of Silence is probably a better option for dimensional duels, and the Runic Wither might be the Omega War and Alliance Omega War version. So you're probably gonna have 2 setups for PvP with her. If she is your main hero, then obviously you're just gonna be doing super villain and 2 PvP setups, because at that point there is not much point to have a separate trash kill setup. So yeah, anyway, we're gonna have to be testing these out in the future as well, but they are both very similar as well, just like those skills I was mentioning earlier, that they are like right next to each other with very similar setups. So I don't really understand, like there is again 100% damage difference and less than 3 seconds cooldown difference. Apart from that, everything is pretty much the same. So anyways, moving on, the third slot or the last slot is filled with my third Hex Energy skill, and over here I think I'm using the same exact one as I was using for the bosses, and the reason is that this is also like a control skill, so knocks them down, drags them as well while the skill lasts. So in the end there is no amount of status effect resistance that can resist this entire skill while it's being used. It's very similar to Star-Lord's Black Hole gun thingy skill. However, as I mentioned, I need to choose because I really need to sacrifice one of them for a witchcraft skill because of the specializations I chose, which we're gonna be jumping into 1 second. So I'm probably going to go with something from the Witch's Tongue. So first of all, this one is definitely a superb skill for OV and Alliance OV as well, because it's it's giving you decreased damage received and to your allies as well. So you can just go ahead and boost your entire alliance in a team fight, which might as well make or break the deal for you guys. So I think I'm going to be including this, but also it obviously depends on if something's gonna change in the future, if they're gonna be taking off the damage of this, or they're gonna actually up the numbers here as well. So yeah, I'm not quite sure, like from Witchcraft, I don't really like these skills too much, apart from the last one, from the Witch's Darkness, because this one decreases the defense of the enemies and also deals double guard damage and also increased damage if the energy hits the same target. So for the dimensional duel setup, this is definitely a better option than the Witch's Tongue. So yeah, but obviously as soon as there is like a bit more testing done, I'm gonna be coming to you with a actual setup, or with a finalized setup rather. And for now, let's just jump into specializations. Okay, so here we go. As you can see, I went pretty much all in. I actually have not used any specialization materials apart from on my main Black Widow, so I had crap loads saved up, and I still do, so probably could max out everything. But for now, I choose 4 of them to be my main. So increases status effect accuracy rate by 25% and accuracy rate by 25% if a battle lasts for more than 6 seconds. Obviously, any Omega War or Alliance Omega War battle is going to last more than 6 seconds, and if this counter resets after you die, you're probably gonna take the 6 seconds anyway until you make it back to the battle. So this one is pretty much always gonna be active in Omega Wars, where I'm planning to use her the most, as obviously she's a bit too little for dimensional duels just yet. And the reason, and another reason I chose this trait as well, is the other trait that I've also chose, which is the Magic Hex Domination, which increases the damage dealt to immobile targets or targets with status effect. This is pretty much the exact same trait that Black Widow has, but at least Scarlet Witch has much more options to put a status effect on the enemy. So this one is definitely a very good option for her, because it basically boosts your overall damage output by 30%. So I think this is safe to say that this one is gonna be included in any and every setup that's gonna be made for Scarlet Witch. So number 3 is Mystic Witchcraft. This is the reason I'm saying I'm gonna have to include another Witchcraft skill in my setup. I'm not quite sure if this is gonna be actually good or bad. I'm not quite sure if status effect accuracy is playing here or not. Not quite sure if this silence can be resisted yet, so this is why we need to do a lot more testing. But basically, it fires a magic that spreads to 5 enemies and deals damage equal to 125% of your attack, and also inflicts silence for 2 seconds whenever you are using a Witchcraft class skill. Cooldown on this is 12%. So that's absolutely perfect, because obviously most of her skills are like around 15%, 15 seconds cooldown. So including your cooldown decrease and all that, you're probably gonna be hitting this every single time it's up. So this is the reason I chose. That silence is just absolutely too juicy in Omega Wars and Alliance Omega Wars to pass on. And also it spreads to 5 enemies, which also gonna bring up your assistant count as well. And also it does not actually mention like what if there is like a range to this. So not quite sure if you are fighting with someone in one of the corners of the map, is it still gonna jump over to the other 4 heroes even if they are on the other side of the map, or what's happening, we don't know yet, because Burden is not really the suit of Netmarble for sure. And lastly, I chose Chaos Control. So this is because her like max damage rate is quite good. I think I'm sitting on like 40% right now, and getting a critical hit on all your hits after a max damage on all your skills after a max damage rate for 7 seconds, that is absolutely superb. So this one might need to be paired up with the chaos control, because this is increasing your max damage rate by X seconds for 5 seconds after using a chaos class skill, but obviously this is at level 1, so not quite sure how far is it gonna go up. But for example, the hex magic starts off at 3% and goes all the way up to 30. So counting on this might actually like gives you a total of 30 to 50% extra max damage rate, which is just absolutely superb. And in that case, you're gonna be just hitting max damage rate hits all the time. And the reason I did not include it in the setup just yet is because of the because of these Doctor Strange badges. So in overall you can get, I think, 42%, if I'm correct, out of those 42% max damage rate out of those badges, and that definitely should be enough for this one to be triggering. But let's just have a look on the remaining ones. So there is a super villain damage boost. This one is for Hex Energy, which is obviously, as we said, the highest damage output skills overall. So it just makes sense to pair this with the super villain trait. I think it's gonna be 30% overall. So if she is your main, then you might want to include this in your setup as well, if you are also using her for super villains. This one, Hex Magic, was that energy equivalent exchange I did not really like so much. It increases all your skill damage dealt to enemies by 3%, but also increases your stamina usage by 3%. So this might be a good use if we can get her stamina recovery up enough to not suffer from it, because obviously if you increase it by 30%, you end up not being able to use your skills, and you lose as much as you win with the 30% extra damage. So it again needs a proper setup for sure. But just to mention, her Omega cards have stamina recovery as well, so it might be viable. The Witchcraft Dodge, I'm not quite sure. It sounds fine. It decreases cooldown of all skills by X seconds. I'm not quite sure like how far is it gonna go up. It's probably gonna be like 5-6 seconds in total tops. So I'm not too sure if it's that viable, to be fair, because her cooldowns are not really that long anyway, and the cooldown decrease is there as well, so I think all of her skills can be easily under 10 seconds anyway. So a 12-second cooldown for a few seconds decrease doesn't really make that much of a sense, especially with a 12 seconds cooldown. And also, as we know, these traits trigger even if there is nothing to cool down. So obviously like this, it definitely does not sound that good. Then we have Mystic Stamina. That definitely doesn't sound bad and could be paired together with this one, but I'm not quite sure. As I'm saying, it seems to be a bit too situational, but obviously right now we just don't know enough. There hasn't been enough testing being done. So I'd rather go for the ones that are 100% increase in things. Relative break, become immune to status effects for 3.5 seconds, which probably go up to like 10, 15, 20 seconds in total when it's up to level 10, but also a cooldown of 17 seconds. This is definitely sounding good, but do we really need it that much? Probably not in exchange of damage and output. Then there is the Chaos tier that I already mentioned. This one is definitely could be a good option for the future, but we will see. Then Chaos Confusion. This one is definitely a cool one, maybe for dimensional duels or something like that. If you are already under 50%, you created a magic explosion that deals damage equal to X% of your attack and inflicts confusion as well. Oh no, in that case. So this one definitely could be a very good addition for Alliance Omega Wars or Omega Wars. If you are being attacked under 50% or lower HP, you create a magic explosion that deals X damage, X% of your attack, and also inflicts confusion on all other targets for X seconds. So yeah, this definitely sounds good. Obviously, damage on duel is not really that useful, because even if the enemy is confused, they're only gonna be able to attack you. So yeah, last one would be Chaos Reset. Increases target's skill cooldown by X seconds when attacking target within X seconds after using a Chaos class skill on a target that has status effect. So in my opinion, it's slightly too many ifs. So you need to trigger it with the Chaos skill. You need to have the status effect on, and the cooldown is also quite long. So I think it's one of those that is not that useful. But overall, her specializations definitely look very, very good and very, very promising. So I think with some testing, we can definitely come up with a super strong hero sometime soon. Yeah, I think there is not much else that we need to go into, because we covered her skills. I need to show you the Omega parts, right? So basically, I had a special box as well. So I opened that one up on her, because you can transmute cards off her, you cannot transmute cards on her. So I was thinking that if it might be something that I need on Black Widow, I can just transmute off. But it happened to be a Spider-Man card, which I already have a few of, so it's stayed on her. We have a max damage rate and super villain damage decrease on it, which is not too bad. I mean, I would be definitely happier with something other than super villain damage decrease, but it is what it is. Then these cards are just of Black Widow, so they are missing one stat, so they are basically just a regular 6-star card at the moment. Then I went with Future Imperfect for the extra ultimate boost recovery, and also because together with Spider-Man, they do have a 2-set attack bonus, so that is not bad. And also because of this, I have also included a Kingpin card here, because I had it in my storage anyway, and the guard damage seems to be very good on her as well. So I'm going to try to build a PvP setup for her for now. So this is why I included it. Also, it happened to roll a cooldown decrease start, which I am rather happy with. So this is what I'm going to run in PvP. We might actually just gonna jump in to this Omega War just to see what's happening. But yeah, let me know, what do you guys think about her overall? What do you guys think about her skills, her ultimate, and all the rest? How do you feel about these issues with the costumes that free-to-play players cannot really go ahead and boost the best available skills? And yeah, just let me know what's up. That's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what else would you guys like to see about her in the future, and catch you guys soon. Until next time, peace.